In this video, we're going to take our mix organization to the next level by using submix tracks. Let's get started. To create a submix track, I'm going to go to the Track menu and choose New. And I'm going to create a new stereo aux input track. You may remember this from the previous module when we used the stereo aux input track as a reverb return track. This time, we're doing something different with it. We're going to use it as a submix track for our drums. So I'm going to call the track Drum Submix. Now, it created the track all the way at the bottom of the session. I'm going to drag that up to be right next to my drums, and there it is. The next thing I want to do is I want to route the audio from these tracks into the submix track. When we used the aux input track as a reverb track in the last module, we used these sends on each track to send audio to that submix track. We do not want to do that here because we don't actually want to create a copy of the signal. That would make everything twice as loud. Instead, we want to reroute the audio from going out the main outputs to going in to the submix track. So I'm going to focus on this I/O section right here, input, output. You'll notice that the track has no input, and that's because there's already audio recorded on this track, so we don't need an input. Instead, I'm going to go to the output and change it by clicking on it. I'm going to go down to track and find the drum submix track. Now, this kick drum, instead of going directly to the main outputs, is going into the drum submix channel. And here it is. And from there, it can go to the main outputs. I'm going to do that with each drum track. Now, all of these drums are going into this channel, and this one aux channel is kind of summing together all of these levels. Once we have our drums balanced against each other in the mixing process, then we can use this one fader to turn the drums up and down. This gives us an extra level of control over our drums. Let's check it out. I'm going to turn my drums group on, and I'm going to solo the drums. I can't hear the drums right now because the aux track has been soft muted. So I need to do the same thing I did in my reverb return track and put this track in solo safe mode. I'm going to hold the command key down or control on a Windows and click the solo button. Now this one fader controls the volume level of all the drums together. When you have subgroups for every instrument, then you can more effectively balance the instrument groups against each other. You can also put plugins on a submix track. For instance, we could put the BF76 plugin on the submix track and use this as a compressor for the entire drum group. Submix tracks give us an extra level of control and organization to our mix. Let's move to the guitars and I'll show you a faster way to do the routing. Here are our guitars, and I'm going to click on the last guitar track, and I'm going to make a new stereo aux input track, and I'm going to call it Guitars Submix. There it is. There are a couple of keyboard shortcuts that can speed up your workflow. I'm going to click and then shift click to select the range of tracks. Next, I'm going to hold Shift and Option on a Mac or Shift and Alt on a Windows computer, and I'm going to click one of the outputs. I'm going to go to Track and I'm going to select Guitars Submix. And it instantly changed all of those tracks to the Guitars Submix output and routed them to this track here. I'll solo safe the Guitar Submix, turn this down because I know this track is loud, turn my guitar group on, solo the guitars, and let's listen. This one fader can control the volume of all the guitars. You need a submix track for each set of instruments. A submix for the basses, a submix for the synths. You can choose to have a submix for the lead vocal and a second submix for the background vocals, or one submix for all the vocals together. But either way you choose to do it, you're going to do it the same way. Let's do it now. Now we have submix tracks for every group. I'll go one step further and color code my submix tracks. I always make my submix tracks bright yellow. This makes them easy to see and they really stand out in the mix. We can add yet another layer of control to our mix by creating another submix that all of these submixes will go into, a master submix. For that, I'm going to create a new stereo aux input track, and I'm going to call it Submix Master. I'm going to color it yellow also. And I'm going to take the outputs of these submix tracks and put them to the Submix Master. And finally, I'm going to make sure all of my yellow tracks are solo safed. There they are. Now we have each individual audio track going into a submix track. We have every submix track going into the Submix Master. There's only one track we need to add, and that is a stereo master fader track. So for that, I'm going to create a stereo master fader. We don't have to assign it to anything. The master fader track sits on top of the main output bus, in this case output 1 and 2, and is a volume control for the entire session. Now our mix is looking pretty organized.